Hi, everybody. What is today?
Hello.
Is it Tuesday?
Today is Tuesday.
I'm Mike. I'm here with Ray Arvand, and we are chatting. The premise behind these conversations each night is that lawyers are opinionated people experiencing crazy things, and so I just want to give a place for us to have chats and try to build some community together. So what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce Ray real quick, and then we'll. I love that you've got. Is that your wife behind you? That's funny. Say hi to her.
Yeah, she's
Say hi.
that.
Just it's
She's
2020. She's got to know she's on camera now. this
she's
is
live, yeah.
this is
She's
2020,
peeping in.
man. This is how it works. I'm waiting for a kid or a cat or a snake or a bat or we have like
No,
14 pets, so I have no idea what's going to fly in there. Um, so anyway, we're going to chat real quick, Ray, about your practice, and then what we'll do is talk about some the resources that I usually share each night. I just wanted to sort of talk through some of those and
sure.
have a quick
Be
chat.
happy to.
So tell me a little bit about you. Where are you? Where do you practice? What kind of law do you practice?
Well, my practice is located in the financial district in Manhattan. We're located at 26 Broadway, right across from the Wall Street. You know, the charging bull statue. If people are familiar with the financial area down there, and my sole area of practice is immigration. Do everything from your run-of-the-mill tourist visas to deportation defense, asylum, national interest waivers, marriage green cards, K-1 fiance visas, and all that, and some employment-based petitions as well. And really, I started my practice right out of law school. No one would hire me. No one would even give my resume the time of day. And the interviews that I did get, they were offering me, just insulting compensation
And
packages.
how
And I
long
was like,
ago
I'm
was that?
sorry.
When did you
This was
graduate?
5 years ago.
Okay.
5 years ago. And, I was speaking to, my friends and my family, and they're like, listen, just go out on your own. And fortunately for me, I took a immigration clinic when I was in law school, and I had a bit of a familiarity with it. And, I found some really, really swanky office space, downtown in the Wall Street area for like really cheap. Um, and it was about the size of a closet. All I had was a desk, a laptop, and a printer, but it was like a shared sublease area where I could make use of the conference room and all that. So it was pretty swanky. I liked it. It was good.
I bet it's even cheaper now. And because it's 2020, you had your sweet wife in the background. I've got my dog barking like a crazy person upstairs. So, I mean, this is live, people. So what I want to do, Ray, is talk about some things that have been on my mind and sort of get your take on it and get people chatting about some issues that are faced. All of these things will have to do with solo and small firm practice. So I want to talk through a
Sure.
few things. What I'm going to do real quick, Ray, is share my screen with people, and then I'll come back to you here in a second. We're going to talk about this issue of mastermind. So here's what got me thinking about this. Today, Nina Zhang, who is a new member to the group and is a new lawyer, she's been looking for people to talk to, right, to help with this. And I've been encouraging people to have Zoom sessions where they're just chatting,
Yep.
right, like to get together and hang out. And she put on here the word mastermind, and I asked her to change it to a brainstorm session. And the reason
Okay.
that this is me, as always, probably being too obsessed with words. But the reason I did that change, I want to talk to you guys about this article, which is our business masterminds, put in quotes, a scam. And the reason I want to talk about this is you're seeing a lot of this in law practice, especially right now, that people want some friends, and so they're looking for these different mastermind groups. So what I wanted to do was make a distinction, and then Ray and I can sort of chat through this. The distinction is the difference between a mastermind and a brainstorm session, right? These two, and in the one case, if you go back to Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, when he talks about masterminds, he means already successful people taking it to the next level because there's 5 of them using their social networks to ascend. He's talking about smoke-filled back rooms, right? With the old white guys sitting in there in this, just like making plans, managing the economy, right? As sort of robber barons. And so
Yep.
the idea with a mastermind is supposed to be that you've got these success. It's more about connections than it is about content. these things that we do, you see a lot of these Zoom calls and you see these different, lawyer groups, Facebook groups like this where you get together and you chat and you're talking to each other. They're not really mastermind sessions. They're places for people to share ideas. And in the one case, in the mastermind, you want a small group of elite people. In the case of crowdsourcing knowledge, you want to spread out as much as you can. So I wanted to talk through that distinction. And Ray, ask if you've been in a mastermind, how are you connecting with people to sort of improve your knowledge by sort of crowdsourcing it?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm a mastermind, and I would never think of myself as such. But I mean, when I started out 5 years ago, my client base was zero. I had no one, and that was the conversation I was having with many lawyers that I went to network with. I think one of the lawyers, Barry Seidel, he actually chimed in on your earlier post and said that he met me a couple of times. I actually went to a couple of those networking meetings where I met Barry. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
Gave me a lot of tips and stuff like that. But ultimately, it comes down to what you feel is right. I mean, when I started my practice, like I said, 5 years ago, no clients, and everything came down to how am I going to market myself? Where am I going to get the knowledge? And there was this one social media investing guru who I hate to use the word guru, but there was this one guy that I kept consuming his knowledge. I kept consuming his content. Gary Vaynerchuk. I read his book. I watch his podcasts and his Instagrams and his TikToks and all that stuff. And I consumed it. I applied many of what he was, many of the strategies and content production techniques that he was using, to my practice, and it worked out very well. One of the things that I like to do is I like to barbecue. I like to go out there and cook and all that, and have fun. One of the things that I do with my groups is I'm huge on Telegram and Instagram and all that, and I actually gather a lot of these people who are ethnically similar to myself. Like I'm Iranian American, so a lot of the people that I interact with are Iranians, and my wife and I will throw a barbecue in somewhere in New York, and we'll have like 40, 50 people show up, and while I'm grilling steaks, we're networking and talking and exchanging business cards and talking about how we can grow our businesses. Or some of these people actually just come up to me for immigration advice. So if you want to go to your traditional, mastermind group or, networking group, if that works for you, great. But at the end of the day, you got to see what works for you. What can I do within my capacity? Because if you start throwing in, like that article that I was reading, she was 18,000 in the hole. With spending money on content and books. At the end of the day, how many self-help books are you going to own? How many self-help books are you going to read until you actually get out there and do it?
Anytime somebody tells me they're Iranian, I think of Maz Jobrani's bit where he's like, I'm Persian. Meow, I'm like a kitty. Okie dokie, I'm Persian. I love Maz Jobrani. He's a funny dude. Yeah, well, and I've been thinking about this because people have asked me, for years, have asked me to create some kind of group where there's some other sort of... I was talking to a lawyer recently that was paying, I think she was paying like $500 a month to be in a mastermind group. And they broke these members of the group, which was an online group. It's this totally disaggregated, it's all over the country group. And then they were putting them in these smaller groups, and she said it was so frustrating because I didn't feel like I was improving. I felt like I was just improving other people. And I told her, that's because you were the product, right? Like, you know what you're doing. And so they didn't put you in that group so you could take your practice to the next level. They put you in that group so you could be the smart one for the other people. And that's the thing with these social networks, right? Like, with Facebook and with Twitter, I'm creating the value by writing something on Twitter that Twitter then goes and makes money from. And so I think maybe sort of the bigger picture thing that's been on my mind is I think we're seeing right now the harms of moving all of our relationships online, right?
Yep.
We're seeing this, what a disaggregated society sort of looks like. When you don't have somebody you can call to watch the kids or to bring over a gallon of milk or to, we're out of toilet paper. Who the freak do we talk? You know what I mean? Like people just don't have these nearby social anchors anymore. And
Yeah.
I think for me, this is a lesson in stop chasing content, right? Like don't, and obviously this is ironic for me to say with this group, but I guess put things in the right bucket, right?
Yeah.
These kinds of conversations like the one we're having can be really great and really helpful. But you and me talking to whoever's watching, I'm not bringing you guys toilet paper, right? You've got to still build those close relationships,
Yeah.
like you said, with your Persian community
Right.
nearby.
And it's not one or the other. I mean, look, you can have all the content in the world, but if you're not out there, if you're not putting yourself out there in the physical world and meeting with people, shaking hands, giving out business cards, it's not going to work.
Right.
It's a combination of all kinds of stuff. And believe me, I'm the most socially awkward person. I try to stay away from large crowds, but when it comes down to mingling and speaking to people, you've got to face your fears. I was very shy and very reserved, and held my cards close to the vest and wouldn't go out and do things with people. But ultimately, you start networking, and I went to every networking social gathering I can find in New York, and I met a lot of great people. Actually, that's how I met my wife. But that's what you got to do. You got to get out of your comfort zone. Networking is all about that, getting out of your comfort zone, trying new things. If you put up a new post on Instagram that blows up, great, it blew up, but at least you know what content is not being attracted to. It's not attracting others. I put up one. I remember 3 years ago, I put up one piece of content. It was like a little picture thing that I put up on Instagram, and it was like a boy and a girl in a photo where it says she said yes. Now the hard part comes applying for a green card. Okay, that one photo that I made cost me $3 to make with buying the stock photo and all that, but I reeled in 4 clients from it. 4 clients in a week because of that one Instagram post. So things like that work. It's all trial and error. If you you really got to work at it.
Well, in wrapping up this specific piece, I don't want to always lead people back to the book, but good network science says you've got small bubbles, close clusters, people who are in close networks, build that up. But then also, if you're looking for ideas, if you're looking for these sort of brainstorm sessions, spread out as much as you can. Get that group really diverse. Try to read as much as you can. Read widely, experience widely, always testing your assumptions. So I would encourage people. Nina's going to test that out on Thursday. She's going to do this session where people will get together and they will brainstorm. It is meant for people who are just trying stuff, right? To get together and just a diverse group to just say, this is what we're experiencing. This is what we're trying. It is not a substitute for creating local ties, but it has its use. So that's what I wanted to talk about on that. The next thing that I wanted to talk with you about, Ray, real quick, is this thing of politeness. I saw today this video of a guy in a Costco, and he didn't want to put on a mask. And so he starts recording himself arguing with the guy who worked at who's just a guy, right? Like the dude at the Costco is not creating policy. He's just a dude who's doing a job.
Getting a check.
This How to Be Polite article that was on Medium is so good. It's been around for a while, and I hope you guys will go back and read that. But I wanted to talk to you a bit about Ray, because I the other day I had somebody on Facebook which Facebook is like, it's like a cesspool, and this guy just keeps saying things that get me worked up, that they're attacking, it's toxic, and you're seeing this all over the place, especially with this Two Americas thing. Eventually I just muted him because I like to keep my audience diverse, but I don't like to get worked up. So how are you sort of dealing with, I want to keep, that diversity and the content that I take in and the people I talk to and whatever, but I also just want to not have to kill people.
Well, I mean, look, it all comes down to self-restraint, knowing what battles to get into, you have to understand that in the social media world, even out in the real world, there's a good possibility you're being recorded, you're being watched. Someone is out there with a phone recording you. Be polite to people. I mean, what have you got to lose? My dad always told me that, when I was growing up, politeness doesn't cost much, but it buys everything. And that is one piece of wisdom that really stuck with me from my dad. So, I mean, what do you really get out of being a jerk at a Costco ripping on someone other than
Sure.
you losing your standing with your peers, or if you're out there yelling at some guy who's doing his job at Costco and your wife is embarrassed just to be with you because you're recording yourself and you're ripping on this guy who's doing his job.
Yeah, the guy's wife did have a mask on. I've been thinking about this a lot with this thing of us professionalism being a fiction, because professionalism is a fake role that we play. Researchers call this emotional labor, right? That we're adjusting ourselves to fit into the expectations of some job, and that every time we do it, it's a cost to us. There's like an emotional toll for us to fake professionalism. And so I sort of feel like in this moment where everybody's moved online and we're all separate and we're in our bubbles and we're dealing with a lot of anxiety, the politeness has sort of, waned when it wasn't very high beforehand. So, like, what do you think is the value of maintaining professionalism even when we know it's not real, right? Most of us are wearing pajama pants underneath our button-up shirts on our Zoom calls, right? Like, what's the purpose of maintaining these illusions?
I mean, look, the reason I maintain my professionalism, I'll give you an example. Like I said, sometimes I post on Facebook and, social media and all that stuff from my practice. And occasionally you'll get some people who, come onto the website or come onto the Instagram page and start spewing their political vitriol about, how I'm helping people cross the border and how I'm helping bring illegal immigration and stop, taking American jobs and all that. And sometimes I respond and sometimes I don't. I mean, it's a matter of what's good for me. Am I going to feel good by ripping on this person and saying you're an idiot, or am I going to exercise a little bit of self-restraint and say, you know what, let this guy do what he wants. I mean, if that's what makes himself happy, then great, let him post that. If he wants to think 1 + 1 = 5, great, let him think that.
Well, but we had near us down in Olathe, which is down the street from where I live, there was a guy, two guys who walked into a bar where there was a guy who's Indian American. He actually grew up here, I think, and has been here his whole life. And they walked in and said, "You're an Arab," because people who do these things can't tell the difference. And, walked in and said, "You're stealing our women and our jobs." And then in this restaurant, shot him and killed him in this restaurant down the street. And some of this stuff I feel like culturally, we don't need. We don't need we don't need the fiction of professionalism. But it also feels like people's emotions are really pouring into everything that they're doing in ways that, can get really unhealthy, It can. I mean, maybe this distance is good for a while. I don't know.
I mean, look, it's also a matter of, emotional, intelligence. I mean, if you're going to let something rile you up, it better be for a good cause. It better be for a good reason. It better be something that is near and dear to your heart. But don't go around picking every single fight that's coming your way. And, part of the things that makes us get through our lives is knowing what battles to choose and what to just ignore as just noise and put it to the side and just keep moving.
Well, the last thing that I wanted to talk about real quick was this was news that came out today, and I am 100% not getting into the abortion debate today, but this was an important story that came out today that the woman behind Roe v. Wade, she had, gone and gotten this ruling in Roe v. Wade of the breaking up the abortion system and the trimester system. And afterwards, she came out and said, actually, I'm pro-life, and she became sort of a celebrity in the pro-life movement. And then, right before she died, and this story just came out that in fact she was paid to say that. She said, and even that's sort of unclear, right? Like, was this to get attention now? Which stage was to get attention? The whole story is very confusing. And as I was reading this story about her shift and what it meant for people, I just was thinking about how human litigants are, how human lawyers are, these celebrity, these cause celebs that we attach all this meaning to. They're really just people doing stupid things. So, you've experienced your practice now, and I just wondered, did you have thoughts on the idea of being able to keep perspective on your litigants just being people?
Well, I mean, that's what they are. I mean, it goes back to the old adage, never meet your heroes. You know what I mean? I mean, as far as, this individual who came out and said that she was paid to say, paid to say one thing or the other about, about abortion. Well, of course she did. Because you have to understand, when you have, a case that is on that level of notoriety on the national stage, a lot of these special interest groups or a lot of these groups are going to come out and, piggyback their own pet agendas on top of whatever is causing this wave, and is what, what's causing a lot of, attention, because it's a way for them to bring spotlight onto their own agenda. So this, these litigants, yes, they are people, but they're also vehicles for other agendas. Do I really care whether she herself was one way or the other? No. I want to know what the outcome of that case is going to be. How is it going to affect the trajectory of American jurisprudence? Do I, in my own practice, do I look at my, my clients as just people? Yes, they are, because you have to see the human component of every case.
Well, it's so hard in litigation, right? Because you get in this sort of team setup where my client's an angel and they're the bad guy, and you know what I mean, and you get this very foggy, and I don't even know if that's necessary for zealous representation. I think that's what people think, is you got to have the hero client every time, and that's not the job.
I mean, look, some of our clients are not heroes. I mean, some of our clients are villains, and they've done some horrible things. But we, as attorneys, as officers of the court, we stand by the principle that everyone is entitled to a defense. We stand by that, and I think that we have to maintain that. And if you're going to make a hero out of a plaintiff or a defendant, you've got to change your perspective.
Well, there was a really good article that you can go find on SSRN. It's called "The Emotional Labor of Lawyering," I think is what it's called. And basically, the report showed that they've done a bunch of study on the psychology of lawyering, and it's basically showing that if I believe in something being just, right? If that's why I went to law school, not because I believe in the principle of representing all kinds of people. That's not why most people go to law school. They go to law school because of some cause. But then every time we take on a case that we don't actually agree with that person, either we don't take on the case that we don't agree with that person, or we have to adjust ourselves. We have to play a fiction, and what this study shows is that's really dangerous for lawyer psychology, that our brains just really have a hard time. We start to really detach from our moral reality in order to do this job, which is a huge toll to us. And what she talks about is maybe that's just the cost of lawyering, and we just accept knowing that we're going to have a lot more suicides and alcoholism and depression than other industries. But then she says, or we need to normalize saying, I'm not taking that kind of client. I don't know what the right answer is, because we've always leaned on everybody deserves a defense. But
I mean, my perspective is this. I will, there are times where a case will walk into my office and I just don't agree with it. I mean, either the political leaning or whatever, like, some asylum cases that I have, I don't agree with them. I don't agree with their political or worldview or whatever it is, but I take them on anyway. And I think that what it does for me is it allows me to evolve as a lawyer. How can I take on that perspective? How can I advance that person's interests, knowing that even though I don't agree with it, if I can, anticipate what the other side's argument is going to be, well, I don't need to anticipate it. I know it. I'm on the other side of the argument. And there are sometimes I win those cases because I try extra hard to understand that person's perspective, and it makes me a better lawyer. It makes me someone who is able to not only, argue for the causes I agree with, but also the causes I disagree with. We're not there to judge our clients. We're not there to say, yes, you're right, or yes, you're wrong. We're there to zealously advocate for our clients.
I have such a hard time with it. Like, I'm gonna give people another link. This is to the Massey trial. If you think of Clarence Darrow as a hero, you think that he as a lawyer was the guy who took the work every time, he did a great whatever. Go learn about the Massey trial. You might read that, and I mean, there was just overt racism in this case, and for him, he had been lionized for a long time as a hero of racial progressivism because he took the different trials that he took, but he was a very complicated guy, and when he ran out of money because the Depression happened, he went and represented an overt racist murderer, and it's just so fascinating to think of what are we sacrificing to emotionally adjust ourselves to be zealous advocates for people that we don't agree with. And it may not be because they're evil, right? We may just have a fundamental disagreement. Every time we go into a courtroom and we say something we don't believe, there's a psychological cost to that. And it's just, I hope at minimum people are being mindful of that and giving themselves permission. Well, I appreciate you hanging out with me. Those are just the things I wanted to talk about today. Ray, if people want to get in touch with you, maybe build their own network and expand their thinking, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Just by, my phone number that's on my webpage, and the phone number that's on my, Facebook page.
Yeah, and obviously Ray's
friend me, go ahead.
Yeah, Ray's in the Facebook group, so I hope you guys will chat there. And I would encourage you again, go to Nina's. I put it up as an announcement up at the top of the page. Go to Nina's post. I'll show you here. It's just under announcements. You guys go to Nina's post and let her know that you want to hang out on Thursday. She's going to do it on Thursday. You guys go, if you can, go to the Zoom room and just chat about starting a firm or restarting a firm. I would love to see if those kind of hangout sessions work, and hopefully we will see you guys tomorrow night. Thanks again, Ray.
Absolutely, no problem. Thank you so much for having me, Michael. Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
You too.